Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
In a few days, NYPD hero Michael McMahon is due to report to federal prison. He committed no crime.
There could be no more heinous betrayal of American values than to use the law to terrorize the innocent and reward the wicked. They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. It's very simple. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. They want you silent.
There's a quiet war happening here in the United States, where heroes find themselves in the crosshairs of the institutions they once trusted to protect and serve. From surveillance to silencing, the federal government has used their power not to protect the people, but to control them.
They spied on my campaign, launched one hoax and disinformation operation after another, broke the law on a colossal scale, persecuted my family, staff, and supporters, raided my home, Mar-a-Lago, and did everything within their power to prevent me from becoming the President of the United States. But in the end, the thugs failed and the truth won. Our predecessors turned this Department of Justice into the Department of Injustice. But I stand before you today to declare that those days are over and they are never going to come back. Under the Trump administration, the DOJ and the FBI will once again become the premier crime-fighting agencies on the face of the earth.
Friends, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday, and we're live on Worldview Tube and X-Space's simulcast. Well, what you just heard is the beginning of a nightmare that should never have happened in this country. None of them should have. And today I'm honored to welcome Emmy Award-winning actress, producer, and author Martha Byrne. Martha's enjoyed a legendary career on daytime television on shows like As the World Turns, General Hospital. But for the last several years, her most important role has been fighting for her husband and her family. For more than 30 years, Martha has been married to New York Police Department Sergeant and highly decorated Detective Michael McMahon, a man who spent his career protecting the people of New York with honor and distinction. Then the Biden Department of Justice came after him. They weaponized the full power of the federal government against this decorated cop. Mike committed no crime. You just heard it. He was not given fair due process, and he was sentenced to 18 months in a federal penitentiary. Martha refused to stay silent. She launched a relentless battle to save her husband and expose the truth. The fight is documented now in her powerful book, In the Interest of Justice, which you can get at Amazon. This story is bigger than one family, though. It involves Chinese police connections, a Wuhan fugitive, and Clinton Foundation ties. It is yet another clear example well beyond January 6th of previous administrations' lawfare, corruption, incompetence, and contempt for the rule of law, and quite frankly, for you and me, our citizens. Martha, thank you for your courage in this fight. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be speaking with you. We've met. I'm in awe of your service. Thank you for your service. We have a family of military, cops, firemen, first responders in our family. We are a generational family of service, so thank you for your service. It's strange to see that video that you played at the beginning, which makes me so emotional because it was right before he did go to prison, my husband, and we were fighting to the end. And unfortunately, he did spend some time there before. Again, it does have a happy ending with our wonderful president. Thank God for President Trump. But it's pretty emotional to see that now that we're on the other side of it, for sure.
Yeah, I got emotional when I was researching for the show. I like to use cold open clips for every segment, and after reviewing about 10, I was like, "This has got to be the one," because it made me tear up and get misty eyed.
Thank you. Yeah, because there's so
Yeah.
much. There's so much.
There's a lot.
Not alone, right? It's not just our family. It's a plague that has infested this country, and there's one case after another, after another, after another. I think me putting my foot to the gas pedal and never giving up for over 5 years was difficult, but it was necessary. Could never give up on my husband. He's a hero, not just a hero as in his work, but his contribution to our family and this society, and just taking him out of circulation in this planet to help others it hurt so many people. It really took away a lot of people's heroes in their own story. So that's a tragedy in and of itself.
Yeah, it sure is. So let's go back to around the beginning of all this, Martha. When did you realize that something was not right here and the federal government had turned its full power on you guys? It wasn't just Mike, it was you and the family and the whole circle, really, probably around him.
I think after his arrest, he was arrested October 28th of 2020, right before the election in 2020. And my husband's in law enforcement. He had 78 medals. He never had a parking ticket. I mean, his career was incredible. He was a private investigator when this happened. He was a very successful private investigator. And the first thing you think is, well, let me talk to these are my people, these law enforcement agents. And he worked in federal cases as a PI, as a cop. Like, he wanted to talk, like, something must be wrong here. And very quickly we found out that as soon as they have their crosshairs on you and you're in their crosshairs, they're not going to let up until they win. And once they learned that he was fighting back and that we were going to go full throttle on this, that's when it really got ugly. I mean, withholding evidence and not even giving us evidence to look at for 6 months, and a superseding indictment, which is like right out of their playbook, to charge you again with something that wasn't the original charge. I mean, it's the same old playbook. We didn't know the playbook, though. This was all new. So we got an attorney and started fighting, but we couldn't fight. We learned very quickly that everything that proved his innocence was never going to be allowed to be used in court, and we had witness intimidation in our case, and it was very ugly. It got very ugly. The media was terrible. I was actually got a letter from the intelligence division about one of my tweets trying to, I believe, shut me up. So it got very ugly. And I think that aside, a lot of people have been victimized by the government, but we have children, and I live with my mom, and we had people driving by our home. We had press in front of our house. We had death threats. So when you find out that your own government wouldn't care if you got murdered and your children, that's a really hard thing to stomach for my husband, especially being in law enforcement. And his career was stellar. I mean, he was as clean as they come as far as that goes. Like, he worked in the Bronx for his whole career. He worked in these very, very stressful and a lot of shootouts, and his career was brilliant. And yet they tried to paint him as a criminal that would betray our country, which, again, nothing about what he did was illegal, first of all, but also to paint him as a traitor and put him in the newspaper as like working for the Chinese government, which of course he would never do in the first place. But in this case, he made a few $1,000s back in 2016. I mean, none of it made any sense. So we're like, this makes no sense. We're going to win. Of course we're going to win. We're going to go to trial. Well, and then, at trial, what happens is evidence gets suppressed. They lied to the jury, which they did on day one. They would not allow us to put in exculpatory evidence. We'll talk a little bit about the subject of this supposed stalking. He was not a victim. He was not a dissident from China. He was actually a Wuhan official who was here illegally that was being protected by our Department of Justice. which I uncovered, as I was researching our case. So here you have, not just as an American, you have your own Department of Justice doing the tactics that the Chinese government does to their own people, if not worse.
Yeah.
The betrayal of our Department of Justice was just, to this day, I felt like you were being beaten up over the head with a sledgehammer every single day sitting in that courtroom, and the lying to the jury, not being able to talk about his career in the NYPD, not allowed to talk about the subject of the surveillance being a criminal who was here illegally and had committed all these crimes. Weren't allowed to talk about that. A lawsuit against everything that would have helped him.
Mm-hmm.
We were not allowed to put in. And I tell you, Colonel, I think one of the things that this is such a common story, but one of the things I've heard in the last year or so, which I've heard to be suggested, is cameras in the courtroom in federal cases.
Mm-hmm.
I love that idea because it exposes, you say it, I can tell you 1,000 times, but if you see them do it in real time, wow, I think that would stop a lot of the abuse.
Yeah, I agree with you. As a matter of fact, I was surprised to learn that body cameras aren't required at for federal law enforcement either. And I think that ought to be required too. That's changed a lot of things.
It has.
It's not perfect, but it's changed a lot of things.
Definitely.
The story talks a lot about the lack of due process that Mike got. What were the big things that really stand out that hurt you guys so much? Because you're a law enforcement family, so you're trained. It's pounded into you to make sure that even the lowest of the low-life criminal has due process. What were the big things that about due process that he didn't get, that even the lowest criminal gets?
We were not allowed to use his interrogation video at trial that completely exonerated him. The first hour of him speaking to the FBI agent, who was not even the case agent, and there was a former NYPD investigator there who is now working for the federal government. We weren't allowed to use the first hour and a half or hour and 15 minutes of that interrogation, which explains everything about this case, that he was innocent. They edited it so that it made it look like he said something he didn't. And the judge ruled against us. So there's something called the rule of completion in court, meaning you could pull out any text message, you can pull out any video, but if you don't know the context of it, it changes 1,000 times. So we just wanted to add in even just a minute or minute and a half to explain what they were trying to make look bad. We were denied that. We were denied to, a lot of our evidence was encrypted. We couldn't even open it to read it, and the government wouldn't assist us in doing that, which I find to be revolting. If you have such a strong case, why wouldn't you let us look at the evidence? I think the idea that we couldn't ask the subject the subject was a Wuhan official, CCP official here illegally. He was sued for $30 million successfully for a civil lawsuit, which contained a lot of information in that lawsuit that exonerated my husband, meaning that he was here and stolen money, and my husband was hired for this particular case regarding a civil matter in 2016. We weren't allowed to use that civil lawsuit we weren't even allowed to talk about it. The amount of effort that went into not allowing us to use evidence that cleared him was shocking. The way they would spin legal private investigative work, for instance, surveillance. My husband was parked on a public street. That's what PIs do. Right. So it's not even so much, it's the withholding discovery from someone for a year, for instance, in one case. And a year goes by and we don't get any evidence at all to review. How is that fair, by the way? And then sending it and it's encrypted and you can't open it, and you'd have to hire an IT person for $12,000 a month to even try. But even with that, Colonel, with that, my husband was able to open up some of these files and see that they had been looking at all his other cases, which they should not have been not allowed to. So what do, Colonel? We ask, was there a taint team? Was there a filter team on this case? Yes. Can you tell us more? No. No, because there probably wasn't. See, my point is that the tactics they use is to win at all costs, lie to the jury, which they did every day. My husband was charged with interstate stalking. He's a PI.
Right.
People never saw him. They couldn't identify him in court. All three of these people that supposedly he was involved in this crime. Is that him? No. No, never saw him. So my point is that when I say due process, their due process, the government, they have a whole process.
Right. Yeah.
And I started asking questions, and I started doing media, and I started doing my research. I found so much evidence that supported my husband's case, meaning other private investigators that weren't charged with anything, that were involved in some Chinese cases that were nothing cases, never charged.
Right.
And they got very upset about that. So they really just put the screws to him. And look, you're hiring an attorney, you're paying $1,000 an hour. You got two attorneys, and they want to bankrupt you. And so, I think that definitely the interrogation video, which exonerated him, every single 302, which are these interviews with witnesses in these cases, exonerated my husband. They exonerated him, but the subjects that were interviewed, who some of them were Chinese, were gone. They fled the country. The FBI let them leave. We had it on video at trial. You see the FBI agent let the guy just get on a plane, go back to China. He came back. Yeah, it is so the gymnastics that they went through just to win this case, because it was China. I think that was part of it. And I think I talk about it in my book, that this was October of 2020, election, laptop, China, Biden's, it was like whack-a-mole. It's called like trying to put out every little fire. Yeah. And I think my husband being arrested and having a big picture of him in the New York Post was part of the distraction campaign for the 2020 election, for sure.
Because I know the many of the groups that I'm a civilian member of that watch China and try to call out the things, we're talking about Chinese police stations being here. And I remember when this story broke, the big questions were, what's going on with that, with the Chinese police stations? And they got wrapped up into that. So we got to take a break, Martha. Yep. When we come back, we'll talk about how Mike's career was destroyed. See a little clip about that coming back in, and continue this conversation with Martha Byrne, actress, author, former producer, and a wife and mom who just wants to save her family. We'll be right back.
At a certain age, you stop chasing younger. You start protecting what helps you feel steady, strong, and well. Your body's collagen matters. It supports the structure of your skin, joints, and connective tissue. But as the years go by, your body needs more support from the inside. That's where Bella Grace Elixir comes in. Bella Grace Elixir combines Verisol collagen, the world's most clinically proven collagen, with asteryl astaxanthin and cat's claw in a proprietary blend designed to help support the processes that reconstruct collagen, while also offering antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. And this isn't just for women. It's for men and women who want to age with more confidence, more care, and a daily wellness routine that supports the body from within. One simple elixir, thoughtfully formulated for whole body wellness. Take care of the body that has carried you this far. Order Bella Grace Elixir today at melissahousebg.com.
That was President Trump accusing the DOJ of weaponizing the law to punish the innocent and protect the powerful. Now, if people start to believe the courts are being used for political payback, trust in the entire system collapses. My next guest, Mike McMahon, a decorated NYPD cop with 78 medals, a devoted dad and husband who spent over 14 years protecting the streets of New York. After he retired, Mike became a private investigator, a job thousands of people do legally every day. So how does a man like Mike go from hero to federal convict? How does someone with that kind of service end up accused of spying for the Chinese government?
I conducted legal PI work private investigation work in New Jersey. And then 4 years later, in 2020, the FBI came to my house and they arrested me for working for the Chinese government.
I know someone that is as decorated as Michael is here. That doesn't come easy. That is a distinguished career. And there's something wrong here. And I want to get to the bottom of this. My next guest spent 20.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And my guest today is Martha Byrne, Mike McMahon's wife and mom of his kids, and a law enforcement spouse. Martha, one of the things that struck me is, I can't imagine my wife having to go through this with me being attacked with my long military career, very well documented. Very similar to Mike's, since 9/11, especially the NYPD itself is a national security organization that protects not just New York City citizens, but citizens all over the country because it's a prime entry location for terrorism and terrorists to come through there. Mike is truly an American hero, right? What are some of the things, just highlights of his heroic career?
Well, he was part of the street crime unit, and that was 200 of the hand-picked anti-crime unit under Giuliani that cleaned up New York City. Okay, they were plainclothes detectives, and if there was any pattern of crime in any of the boroughs, these guys were sent in to clean it up, and they did. Like my husband had a shootout in Times Square on New Year's Eve, where a bunch of guys tried to rob a store with AK-47s, shootout. My husband pulls up, there's a shootout. Thank God nobody was killed. But that was in Times Square on New Year's Eve when we first got married. I don't even know if we were married at the time. And the street crime unit was involved in so many high-profile cases where there was officers were putting out their life on the line literally every single day and shooting their guns. Most cops don't ever pull their gun. Yeah. And in New York City and in the Bronx, my husband was in 43rd Precinct in the Bronx, they were very active. And then he became a school safety sergeant, which he was in charge of 40 public and private schools in the Bronx to protect kids, make sure that the gangs weren't infiltrating. And it was every day there was something going on there. He ran into burning buildings and saved lives. He was the guy you wanted to show up when you called 911, and he did show up. So at trial, they couldn't find anything. They went back to everything. They've seen everything about your life, right? They try to paint you as this horrible person. So they went back to his entire NYPD career, and they found 2 complaints. I call those civilian complaints. Anybody can go in and file a complaint. It was from a gang member's mother who was complaining about my husband because her son was trying to recruit kids on a school grounds, okay? That's the complaint that the Department of Justice tells a jury that he had a complaint against him and the NYPD. They don't say what it is, but to paint him as a bad guy. I don't know about you, but being around law enforcement and it's so high pressure job to have such a stellar and perfect career. And don't say the word perfect lightly, where everybody is loved him and adored him and was happy to see him when he showed up on the job. They knew they were safe. And to do this to him, see, the FBI knows, the DOJ knew that he was this guy, that his career was, 9/11 first responder. They didn't care. It didn't matter. That actually made it more of an interesting story for their press. And then they had to really dig deep, and they had nothing. They couldn't find anything. Even when he was arrested, after he was arrested, he stopped a bank robbery in our local town of an old woman who was going to be robbed. He stopped a fight in Grand Central Station of a girl getting beaten up. He could have kept walking. He could have kept going, but he didn't. He turned around and said, "That's what I am. That's who I am. That's how I'm wired." So you can't take that. You can't stop that from him. But they did stop that. He had to give up his business. His successful business. And when he was a PI, he did cases for the Vatican. He did an investigation that cleared a bishop of a crime and which was incredible work. And then he worked for a presidential candidate at some point. They took that away from him. not just for him as financially, that wasn't the issue. You know, we've been very successful. He loved the job. He worked part-time as a private investigator. He did it because after he retired at a career-ending injury on the job, he loved the job. So he kept doing it. So the fact that our government would think that he would sell his soul, put his family in danger with the Chinese Communist Party for $5,000. Could you imagine sitting around a table with the FBI agents going, you know, how much money did he make? Oh, we think he made about $5,000. Oh, that's a slam dunk right there. That's a guy who's going to, you know, work for the Chinese Communist Party. But the bottom line is, Rob, when he got this case, which was in 2016, he got a call from a New York-based company, translation company, New York, okay? He got paid through a New York company, okay? That is not the Chinese government, okay? He does some surveillance. He does some searches. Apparently, this guy had stolen money from a family construction business. He finds the guy's got houses. He's got cars. He has got the money, right? It's somewhere.
Right.
It's 2016. He tells the local police he's doing surveillance. Okay. He notifies local police. He brings 2 retired NYPD detectives with him who are now PIs to do surveillance. They notify the police. That was it. They made a few $1,000s. So to build a case out of that, because they needed an American, he was the only American that was arrested in this case. The rest were either Chinese low men on the totem or had fled the country, okay?
Yeah.
They needed an American. That is so vile to me, even though he was innocent, to make it a case. It's just to sacrifice our family and then to put him in federal prison. You know, when he was found guilty, because everybody is, you know, there was no evidence, it didn't matter. The judge sentenced him for 18 months, not because he committed any crime, she said, because he felt no remorse for the victim. That's what she says, the judge. But the victim was a criminal. The victim was a CCP Wuhan official. The victim was a criminal who violated laws in the United States of America, and and they knew it, right? So to put him in federal prison for 18 months, knowing he's innocent, this judge, and says, my children will be fine because they're adults. That's what she said. They'll be fine. They're adults, your children.
Fantastic.
It makes me sick. It truly makes me sick.
Just to be clear, I mean, he's a private investigator. He's following all the rules. He's not out there being a cowboy, right? I mean,
Not
there's
at
no
all.
cowboy in it all, right?
No, they never asked him to do. He would never do anything. Trust me. You think if they asked him to do something that was outside the box of scope of his work, he would call he would have made was to the FBI, because that's what he would have done. Like, something's wrong here. You know, you're with two. See, we come to find out, or at least believe that. Yes, there was the person that hired him. They didn't want him to do anything illegal. They were really looking for civil money. And it turns out that was true, that he had millions and millions of dollars in real estate. And I mean, his wife got her green card illegally and then bought a $1.6 million house cash in New Jersey. So what I think is they thought my husband knew something that he didn't. He just was doing his job. It was public information, you know. Right. So it's still shocking to me to think that our government sided with the CCP in this case. They protected our enemy, and they were willing to let my husband go to prison where he could have been killed every single day in that prison. They put him in a low security prison as a cop, where he was with gang members, murderers, rapists, child molesters. They put him in general population in Michigan. Wow. How do they do that?
That's attempted murder when it's a cop. That's my humble opinion. That's unbelievable. We got to take another break, Martha. When we come back, I want to dive into this Wuhan issue, who this guy was, and there's some other connections that you wrote about in the book that you've uncovered. And I want to go through all of that in the second half of the show, because I don't think the American people, some probably know about this, but they need to really know what the heck is going on, because something, as Dr. Phil said at the opening, there's something very wrong here. And we've got to get to the bottom of it, even though Mike's been pardoned and all of those things. We've got to get to the bottom of all of these cases. That's why I'm doing one every day this week, folks. We'll be right back with Martha Byrne.
Take a look at the water you just poured. It looks clean. It tastes fine. But what's really in it? Lead, fluoride, arsenic, chlorine, pesticides, PFAS forever chemicals, pharmaceutical residues, and bacteria. Every single day, these toxins flow straight from your tap into your glass, into your family. It's time for Sentry H2O from Worldview Water. Sentry H2O is the ultimate water treatment technology, designed to remove harmful toxins, balance your water's pH, and enrich it with essential minerals like calcium and magnesium, the way nature intended. From commercial-scale systems to whole house filtration to crisp, delicious drinking water right at your kitchen sink and shower, Sentry H2O delivers cleaner, healthier water everywhere you need it. No plumber, no tools, no plumbing knowledge required. Perfect for homes, apartments, rentals, RVs, refrigerators, and more. Because everyone deserves access to clean, healthy water. Visit worldviewwater.net. That's worldviewwater.net.
Years inside the FBI, 20 of those focus on Chinese counterintelligence. This is his first national interview, and he's breaking his silence tonight. So I want you to welcome retired FBI agent Kevin Hecht.
This whole situation does not fit any MO of how the Chinese government, how the Chinese intelligence services, or how the Chinese law enforcement services work. I don't know of any circumstances in my career where they used an American Caucasian citizen to further their activities.
How could he have smoked this out to realize that this wasn't a routine engagement?
China knew they were breaking U.S. law. They wanted as few people as possible to know what they were doing. And I think the last thing they wanted to have was an NYPD decorated officer knowing that they were operating unlawfully. So I think it would be very difficult to smoke out.
Congress.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube with Martha Byrne, whose husband is Michael McMahon, former NYPD Sergeant and detective, highly decorated man turned private investigator that was really abused by the federal Department of Justice. That's my opinion based on everything I know. And Martha is Emmy Award-winning actress, producer, and author of the book In the Interest of Justice about her husband's case and what happened with their family and what continues to happen with their family. Martha, this Chinese connection here, you mentioned the company that hired Mike. Is that company, is it tied back to the CCP somehow?
Well, this was a translation company in Queens, and she was not arrested. You know, this is 4 years later. My belief is that she was some sort of informant or some sort of cooperator or some sort of middle person, you know. But remember, my husband wasn't asked to do anything through her. She paid him through a bank check. The business is still up and running. So, you know, something may have been awry there in her world that we still don't know about to this day. The prosecution never called her to testify. It seems very suspicious to me. And I think when you speak to Kevin Hecht, who just spoke, that you saw in that clip, he was the leading fox hunt expert in New York FBI, and he was not included in our case. He was not brought on by the FBI to assist in our case, which is very suspicious to me, that they wouldn't include someone who had knowledge that would say, no way would the cop, you know, we have to protect the cop and tell, or let's, even better, why don't we talk to the detective from NYPD who may be able to help assist us in understanding why the Chinese had what they were doing in New York City, police stations, etc. But they didn't do that. They kept it private in New Jersey, in a little Red Bank, New Jersey FBI field office, and in DC, and the Eastern District of Brooklyn, New York, which a lot of most Chinese cases came out of, okay? Yeah. So they were walling off a lot of people, and we've come to find that out, which is also very concerning. You know, in our trial, we found out that there were thank you notes, you know, to one of the agents, the FBI agents in New Jersey, regarding these people's immigration, a civil lawsuit, thanking them for helping and assist them. Now, if that doesn't stink to high heaven, I don't know what does. So what we found, so let's just go back a minute. When Mike got this case and he Googled the guy's name that he was following, it came up that he was wanted for embezzlement, money stealing in China. That was it. That was it. Like, oh, well, this aligns with what I've been told, that he stole money from China and he came to the United States. He fled and you know, whatever. So that aligned with what he was told. That was all you could find out about him online. When my husband was arrested in October 28, 2020, we searched the name again. And the Wall Street Journal had done a story about this man being a victim of lawfare, civil lawfare from the CCP. So we get the lawsuit, we read it and thinking, this doesn't sound right. And turns out through more investigation, a further dive, he was a Wuhan official who was in charge of buildings and Belt and Road in Wuhan, fled the country in 2010 of China, came here and was part of the EB-5 immigration program. Now, a lot of people that are listening don't know what that is. Trump did speak about that when he first got back into the White House. So you could pay $500,000 and you could get a fast track to a visa, but you had to have like 10 jobs in the United States. You had to, you know, it was really supposedly to help build more business. Well, this man, his wife, and his sister-in-law were a part of this fraud. Now, why do I say that? EB-5 fraud. The same week, Colonel, the same week my husband is surveilling this gentleman in New Jersey, not knowing anything, our FBI has a search warrant application the same week in California listing him, this guy, as a fugitive who committed fraud, wire fraud, immigration fraud, the same week in 2017, but was never arrested. So,
oh my gosh.
Right? So two things can't be true at the same time. Is he a criminal or is he a victim? Okay.
Unbelievable.
And yeah, unbelievable. So I do a little digging further and I find out that his immigration attorney, who was from California, the same guy that my husband was following, she was arrested for a $50 million fraud case for immigration. $50 million documented, 50. She served 1 day in prison, 1 day, and she was connected to Hillary Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
So she was involved in EB-5, so was her brother, Hillary's brother. So there's something that is very fishy about an immigration attorney who's Chinese as well, who's involved in also some campaign fraud, things in that. There's a whole, you know, there's a pipeline of financial money laundering that's going on. We see it now, right, with our elections and like what's happening. This was going on a long time ago.
Sure,
so the same attorney was connected to Dianne Feinstein, the Obamas. Like you're finding out all that. Wait a minute, something is really fishy. So
yeah,
we say, what did this guy know, or didn't know, or claimed that he knew? So here we are, right? Mike's like, I did this little case. I mean,
yeah, I'm trying to figure out why are they so interested in Mike? I mean, you said it already. I'll just recap it. I think what I heard was he did some surveillance. Yeah. They did a search, I think, if I remember correctly.
They found like that this man had like multi-million-dollar homes. He'd owned homes in California and LLCs, and he was clearly, he didn't have a job. So, you know, you hand over to your client, and says, thank you very much. And you move on with your life. But what happened was some of that information that my husband uncovered ended up in the civil lawsuit against this gentleman. Okay. Which they won. They had a $15 million judgment against him by the time we went to trial. But our prosecutor stayed the case, put it on pause until we were after trial. And you know what happened after my husband was found guilty? That case in New Jersey was dismissed, impounded with prejudice. So a few weeks after my husband's found guilty, all of a sudden that lawsuit just goes bye-bye. This $30 million lawsuit goes bye-bye. If that's not a quid pro quo, I don't know what is. Did he testify so that the civil lawsuit would? We tried to bring that up, and it was we were not allowed to talk about it. Are you getting any favor? And he says, I don't believe that I am getting any favor. In Chinese, by the way.
Yeah. So Mike, the charge that they convicted Mike on, what was it exactly?
Failure to register as a foreign agent.
FARA.
Okay. And, that was being used with Michael Flynn. It was being used with, that was like the catch-all that in 16, 17, 18, they were starting to use this as but we've heard, we found a podcast of someone who worked in the intelligence division saying, we decided that it would be a good statute to use criminally to kind of go after people. It's like, wait a minute. It's either a $200 filing with the online, or it's federal prison. I'm sorry. But as you may know, is that when Pam Bondi got in, she clarified FARA because of our case, I believe. And the James Comer's Oversight Committee did a full report on the CCP about every agency, every federal agency. The DOJ got a failing grade regarding the CCP because they put our case in there. It was not FARA. He is a private investigator doing his work, and they just went off on them, which was great. But he still went to prison. So it's like either you're and stalking, interstate stalking. He never left New Jersey. First of all, the man never saw him. There's no police reports. He never called the police. There's no video of anyone following this guy. No photographs. Nothing. I don't know about you.
No witnesses were called.
Nothing.
To testify
Nothing. To that? On the first day of trial, they put up a picture of a mall. In the criminal complaint, it says my husband witnessed a public meeting of this man with his father. He's like, I have no idea what they're talking about. At trial, they put up a picture of a mall to make it look like my husband took that picture. And it had electric vehicle chargers in it. We're like, wait a minute, they didn't come out until what year? It never happened. We had someone, their own witness said, Mike McMahon was never near a mall. The data on their phone shows that he was never even near that mall. So they made it up. They lied to the jury that my husband did that. Can you imagine? Even with data, like cell phone data, that he wasn't even there. They just made it up. I mean, this is disturbing.
Well, we've seen that in other cases, like the pipe bomber case. I believe some of the new information in the pipe bomber case is just made up because they're ignoring metadata and tracking data from the cell phone data that they originally said was corrupted in that area. But it turns out it's not. I mean, the lying is the part that's really concerning because, you take a guy like Mike, and there's no indication that the Chinese are connected even to the company that hired him, the client that he was working for as a PI. All of his paperwork is right as a PI. The procedures he used, I mean, he even called the police to let them know, which is probably, I'm assuming, is part of the procedure you use as a private investigator when you're going to surveil.
Safer. Yeah,
it keeps everybody safe. Yeah. Exactly. And then he gets hit with a FARA violation and interstate stalking. The FARA part really confuses me because I can't figure out how did they connect him to the Chinese? Because of the victim?
I guess. I mean, we thank God we found out during trial that how Mike was recommended for this case. By God's grace, there was an attorney Mike had worked for in 17. He goes, I may have recommended you for that case. He goes, let me go back. He had a text message where he had texted a lawyer in Queens, a different person, recommending him for this case. So we bring this up at trial. So they couldn't charge him with conspiracy to violate FARA because we stopped the chain of like what it could be, but he got found guilty of violating FARA. But there was the fact that the client was Chinese. So what? But you see my point? Like, it doesn't matter. And he spoke perfect English. There was no reason to believe this man was not telling the truth. Now, it turns out he was not telling the truth. This Chinese cop who met with my husband, who claimed to be a person who had his money stolen, Colonel, that man who was a Chinese police officer had been in our country like a revolving door. It came out at trial that He had come here and studied with Dr. Henry Lee. He'd been in Houston, training with the Chinese police. So we let them come here, okay?
Yep.
We trained these men and women sometimes on our invitation, and now you have buyer's remorse. So COVID hits and you're going to make it look like you're doing something to be tough. And look, about a year, not even a year after I guess my husband's convicted, but less, Antony Blinken hosted the man who started fox hunt operations, who started them in China. He came to the United States and broke bread with Antony Blinken. So my husband was a fox hunt kid. He was at the UN, this guy. So I got on the phone and I called Congressman Lawler, who was our angel, who has saved our lives as long as President Trump. And I said, how can we have a guy come from China who they just told us this is the worst thing that ever happened on the planet, that these fox hunt, they're coming here and harassing people. We just invite. He goes, he made himself a diplomat so he can come here.
Oh my gosh.
So
we got to take our last break, Martha. When we come back, I want to dive some more into this, but also explore this Clinton Foundation connection that you've uncovered, because, I mean, this is explosive, folks. You need to know what the heck is going on, because none of it is good for you and me, the average American citizen. We'll be right back with Martha Byrne.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
That Mike uncovered in New Jersey weren't just anyone. They were Chinese officials tied to Wuhan, protected by the FBI, with a suspiciously long list of donations to the Hillary Clinton Foundation. The real question, who did Mike find that he wasn't supposed to? And why is the Biden administration shielding foreign criminals instead of protecting Americans?
When an agenda is being run other than the law, people can get caught up in a machinery that can be very dangerous. And when politics get into prosecution, when convictions become the goal instead of justice, we can get out of control in a fast hurry. And we've got to have a return to justice. And I don't think justice is being served here. And I think everybody that sees this should be outraged.
I feel beat.
And we're live on Worldview Tube. My guest is Martha Byrne, award-winning actress and author of the book about this story about her husband, new NYPD Sergeant and Detective Michael McMahon, turned private investigator, who is accused of being a foreign agent for China on a routine case. He was asked to just look at a guy, do some surveillance on him because he was accused of embezzlement, I think, was the primary thing. And but Martha, you uncovered all this deep connection with Wuhan and then the Clinton Foundation. What do you think is going on here? I mean, what did the facts show you that's going on here? I guess instead of your opinion, what are the facts showing?
The facts show that the subject, who has been proven by the FBI to have committed immigration fraud through the EB-5 visa program, it's documented. I mean, it's even in the search warrant in California in April of 2017 that he got a false green card. So did his wife. And you can't get a visa if you have a false green card, first of all, and invested $1 million cash into this program to get their fast track. Now, that was in 2016 that they did that, but then was it 2016? Anyway, it doesn't matter. When Trump got in, when Trump got elected in 16, everything went to haywire, right? Because that was kind of turned on its head. So what happened was we found out that in researching this man that he had donated to Hillary Clinton. Now he's a wanted fugitive from China, from Wuhan, and he's donating these. There's a pattern of donations, amounts to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign back in 16. And then you research a little further. In WikiLeaks, there's emails from this immigration attorney who was arrested with John Podesta, talking about how she can get money from Chinese to part of the campaign, to raise money for the campaign. And it's documented in WikiLeaks. So we're putting the pieces together thinking, okay, did this man, this whole EB-5 program was part of some sort of political, but I believe money laundering process. We found out that even FBI buildings in San Diego were built with EB-5 immigration money. It's like, what's really going on here? Why are we using Chinese money to build our most secure FBI facility? And actually, it is in the country. It holds all evidence, things like that. So it doesn't make any sense. I mean, none of it makes sense except when you start realizing that it's all about the money, right? And Hillary Clinton's brother had an EB-5 project that was fast-tracked by Mayorkas in Virginia. It's well documented. There was an OIG investigation into that, and nothing happened. But strangely enough, right before Hillary ran for the election in 2016, her brother shut that EB-5 program down. So there's definitely a lot of people making a lot of money. And when you look at China became the number one by like 80%, using the EB-5 program to either set up fake companies, fake, citizenship, they abused this opportunity and then some. So I think if the FBI knows that he's involved in Wuhan, and our government was negotiating to send him and his wife back year after year. So they knew he was a criminal. They were discussing sending him back. It's well documented. I'm not saying anything that's not public. And yet, I'm sorry, if he's a dissident and a victim, we're not discussing sending him back. Like, our government's not like, okay, no, they protect dissidents here. They give them security. They move them sometimes to protect. No, this guy was very comfortable. He walked into that courtroom with a $4,000 suit and just went right. He controlled that courtroom, and it was as clear as can be. And not one person from the media covered his testimony, okay? Not one person was there to say, maybe I want to hear what this guy says from Wuhan and see what he has to say. Nobody. So it's the media. They're complicit. And sadly, they were protecting whether he played them or he was part of them is yet to be determined. But, our judge knew, absolutely 100% knew about this man's background. The day of Mike's sentencing, a letter came from a very high person who knew a lot to the judge saying, we're very concerned that this subject is still working for the CCP and still an asset for the FBI. This should be stopped immediately. And it was completely ignored.
Wow. Yeah. So I guess Hillary Clinton's loss really disrupted a lot of things. Huh?
It sure did. This money train just went to a screeching halt. But the programs were already in process.
Yeah.
You can't donate to you. First of all, you have to be a citizen. Second of all, but a wanted fugitive and having communications with the campaign, the immigration attorney and the EB-5 having communications with her campaign about getting Chinese money to, help raise funds. It stinks to high heaven. And I think you're right. What happened was once Trump got in, they had to have a scapegoat. My husband was 100% a scapegoat about the China issue because on October 28th, 2020, when he was arrested, there was letters of support to the Biden administration and to the Trump administration to keep Christopher Wray in office no matter who won. The same day my husband was arrested, okay? It was all about China because Trump was like, we're not doing enough on China. We're not doing enough on China. So that checked a box. And with Biden, it was like, woof, they're in bed with China. We got to make sure we look like we're doing something on China. It's in the book. Like, people can read the book and go and see what I found and make their own decisions. But it's too coincidental that on the same day we're trying to keep Christopher Wray in office, John Demers, who was, intelligence, going out there saying things that were totally wrong. The media playing along with it. I have a absolute proof in my book about how the media was being used by our government to fake a fake story. They never talked about my husband's heroism. The press never talked about his history as a hero cop. Never one story, not one story. And not just to add, my husband was pardoned by the president, thank God. But the case was also completely vacated this past March by the Second Circuit of New York, thrown out, like completely moot. So it is one of the worst displays of abuse of our justice system, I would think, on record in the history of this country. And that says a lot.
Oh, yeah. Do you think that, or I guess my question should be, did you find and put in the book a connection to the Wuhan virus issue that we were grappling with at the time?
I think that COVID gave the Chinese criminals, whether they were here or abroad, anywhere, opportunity to become valuable to our government. And I'm not alone in this belief that there's the other documented cases of Chinese men who were imprisoned calling, saying, I know something, I can help you. And they got him out of prison, kept him, put them up, housed them, happened in Canada. So the fact that this man was part of the building commission of, he was on that was his job, to approve plans, to do buildings, roads, and in 2000, I think he fled China in 2010. I'm no brain surgeon, but, seems like this guy might know something, possibly, or not. But there's definitely value to that person in some capacity. And the Chinese will lie, cheat, steal, do whatever they have to do to get what they want. This is their goal is the same, which is to protect the CCP. Now, here's a guy, you tell me, he's wanted by the CCP, allegedly. He's wanted, right? For this embezzlement. He stole 137 million apparently from China, allegedly. But yet he seems very comfortable, So to me, anytime I've seen a Chinese dissident who's been interviewed, who's been, really scared to death about, speaking out against the government here, when they're here, it doesn't look like that to me. I don't see, and there's either he used his because he was ready to be put out, leave. So. Yeah. So this is extremely important. On October 7th of 2020, in the civil lawsuit against him, the New Jersey Civil Court said, we have been waiting and waiting years. You're supposed to turn over documents to us, to this case, for years, and you're stalling and you're stalling and you're stalling. You have 21 days to turn over those documents, or we're ruling against you, basically, in the 30 million. What happens 21 days later? My husband got arrested. To the day. And what does he do, this man? What does he do? See, I told you I was being harassed. But guess what happened, Colonel? The civil court said, that doesn't prove anything. We're going forward with this civil lawsuit against you. So he's like, now what do I do? They were really up against him in the civil New Jersey case. He was guilty. I mean, there was plenty of evidence because he was found guilty. So he had a lot of, remember, he had connections with the FBI. We saw the emails, we saw the communications between them. And I'm sorry, if you're communicating with a CCP Wuhan official, you don't care about our country. You're not on our side, to me.
Yeah, so, the FBI protects those confidential informants or confidential human sources, et cetera. I mean, that's part of their DNA. Yeah,
protect, but you don't assist. There's a difference.
Yeah, well, they've gotten to do that now, too.
Yes.
So we got about 30 seconds left, Martha. Go ahead and tell folks where they can get the book again and find you on social media, those kinds of things. And what's Mike doing right now? What's he doing?
Right now, he's outside. Thank God he's home, and he's going to, back to work. He's going back to work. He's going to get back to who he is. I mean, he took a lot away from our family. But he's so grateful to Congressman Michael Lawler, to the President of the United States. God bless him. He saved our lives. Yeah. He saved our family. And you can go to Amazon and get the book and read for yourself what we went through. But we had a lot of faith, we really have God on our side, thank God. And we're gonna Martha Byrne 10 on X. You can see, and I do post a lot of things, and we really appreciate the support. And someone said, said to my husband, "Aren't you angry?" And he goes, "I'm grateful." My husband said, "I'm grateful for all the support and the love that has come my way to free me and give me justice." So we're grateful. We're blessed. Our kids are healthy. My son even became a police officer. So we're doing okay.
Well, I'm glad. I am grateful. My family's grateful that you guys have the courage to stand up and tell this story and continue to tell it, because we all need to hear it. And I just want to thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you. God bless you. God bless you. And again, thank you for your service.
God bless you.
Hero, sir.
Appreciate it. Hope to see you all again soon. Well, tomorrow is Whistleblower Wednesday here on the Rob Maness Show, and we'll be talking to Jeremy Harrell, American veteran, disabled, that has been drugged through the ringer about his disability payments because he was volunteering to help other veterans that are in need and in danger of doing things like committing suicide. I'll see you then, right here on Worldview Tube.